no, my bank book is missing. I distinctly remember placing it at the back of this drawer. Could it be them? Despite supporting my eldest son and his wife who have been living together for several years, they've ignored me for 3 years without even saying thank you. I simply wanted them to show a little gratitude. But it's okay now. I will never forgive them. I'm a 56-year-old retiree who left my job to care for my unstable mother-in-law. I work from home while providing care. Although I was just a few years away from retirement, I couldn't leave my mother-in-law living alone, so I decided to live with her. My husband is away on business and only comes home once a month, bringing lots of vegetables and Japanese sweets that my mother-in-law loves. Thank you. I'm so grateful for everything you do for me, she says every time she expresses her gratitude. My father-in-law passed away over 10 years ago from cancer, unable to enjoy his favorite foods in the end. My mother-in-law often regrets not having done tests earlier and wishes she could have fed him the delicious foods she enjoys now. Her condition varies greatly from day to day. Some days she's bedridden and barely eats, while other days she's energetic and goes for a walk by herself. Her unpredictable behavior often surprises me, but as long as she enjoys her days, I'm happy to watch over her. However, there are troublesome events that occur 2 or 3 times a month for both my mother-in-law and me. My eldest son and his wife from the neighborhood show up, demanding food and pocket money. Hey grandma, today's the day your pension comes in, right? Could you donate a little to us, the less fortunate? They ask. I think to myself, it's starting again. Every time they don't leave until they get the money. I try to intervene, but it usually ends in a quarrel. I tell everything to my husband, who's away on business. He just sighs in exasperation, muttering about what a troublemaker our son is for not holding a steady job. What is he even doing? He remarks. Although he scolds our son over the phone, it seems to have no effect. The constant cycle of their visits leaves my mother-in-law and me exhausted. It's like they drain all my energy. Initially, we endured their visits thinking it was only 2 or 3 times a month, but their frequency increased, adding to our stress. Then, in the middle of a weekday, my son suddenly arrived home. I got fired from my job, he announced. He had been repeatedly absent without leave, even losing a USB containing important company data. Initially facing a pay cut, he ended up fighting with his boss and getting fired. Despite being clearly at fault, he seemed unrepentant. Seriously, none of them even do their jobs properly and act all high and mighty. That's why I hate people who act like they're elite. My son grumbled. He declared his intention to move in next week, dismissing our concerns about his grandmother's health. Despite my attempts to refuse, he remained stubborn, insisting that his decision was final. Faced with his determination, I couldn't help but sigh. If my husband were here, he would sternly scold them and send them away. But I can't stand up to them alone. Hey Emily, is Tom moving in here? If so, should I go to a facility? I'll be in the way. And those kids aren't even working. My mother-in-law frets. Don't worry about such things, mother-in-law. I'll make sure Tom gets a job and he'll be leaving soon. I reassured her. I feel terribly sorry for making my elderly mother-in-law worry like this. We doted on our only son, but we never intended to raise him to be so unreasonable. The son I knew was kind and considerate, but he clearly changed after meeting his wife, Catherine. To ease my mother-in-law's worries, I offer her assurance. You don't have to worry about anything. I intend to take good care of you. I repeated my explanation several times, and gradually the tension on her face eased. However, the day my son and his wife moved in arrived sooner than expected. Despite having separate bedrooms, we rearranged the rooms to share one. As my mother-in-law felt increasingly insecure being alone, her desire to share a room only highlighted her anxiety. Unfortunately, their behavior from the first day was appalling. Hey Mom, we're planning to use the entire second floor for our room. Is that okay? my son announced. From today, the second floor bathroom is ours only. Don't come upstairs, okay? We're still newlyweds and don't want unnecessary people coming and going. Please understand. They even moved all my workroom stuff to the hallway, leaving me speechless. It was clear that if I stayed silent, they would continue doing whatever they wanted. My son added, "Mom, the mortgage on this house is still ongoing, right? I don't plan to pay rent until I find a job, and I'm not going to pay for groceries or utilities either. So take care of it." Feeling increasingly irritated, I reluctantly responded, "Aw, I see." From then on, I was ignored by my son and his wife. A week passed since they moved in, and there were no signs of job hunting. His wife left dirty dishes unwashed, neglected laundry, and they freely used our car without asking, leaving it full of trash and low on gas without refueling. Overwhelmed with responsibilities, my mother-in-law, who should have been relaxing, ended up helping with housework. Realizing this was wrong, I confronted my son. "Tom, are you even job hunting? You can't just stay at home all the time. Do something, at least clean up your dishes." However, he continued to ignore me, complaining to his wife, "Lately, I've been hearing these hallucinations about job hunting or whatever. We have a place to live and food to eat, so why work? Stupid." They laughed about it, referring to my mother-in-law and me as hallucinations and ghosts. Despite our frustration, my mother-in-law and I decided to let them be for a bit longer, believing our chance for payback would come eventually. We constantly talked about them when they weren't around, discussing our options to get them out of the house and make them regret their actions. Spending the entire day excitedly discussing our plan, I felt less isolated, as if we could get through it together. Almost 3 years have passed since they moved in, and they've been ignoring us for 3 years now. Perhaps they think we're ghosts. True, they haven't paid a penny for rent or living expenses. Their savings must be running out soon, right? Indeed, they might be covering their cell phone bills and dining out. But I've heard they're estranged from Catherine's parents, so financial help seems unlikely. They may ignore us now, but surely they'll come to us for help once they run out of money. That's when we'll take our revenge. It was 2 weeks after that conversation, when we were busy preparing for my mother-in-law's clinic visit, that I noticed my son acting fidgety since morning, not seeming hungry but searching for something. Knowing he would ignore me if I spoke, I pretended not to notice and left for the hospital. Upon returning home, I discovered my son and his wife were gone, and my bank book was missing. Thinking the worst, I went to check my bedroom. Oh no, my bank book is missing. I distinctly remember putting it in the back of this drawer. Could it be them? My mother-in-law came and asked, "Emily, what's wrong? You look pale. Did something happen?" I told her that Tom and Catherine had stolen my bank book. They took the bank book that was kept here. The house mortgage is $2,000 a month, and on top of that, I've been supporting my son and his wife who haven't paid a penny. I didn't expect them to say thank you, but I at least wanted them to show some gratitude. Despite the theft, according to my online banking, no money had been withdrawn from the account yet. I rushed to the bank to close the account. They were mistaken if they thought they could withdraw cash with just the bank book, without knowing the PIN or having the seal. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became at my son and his wife. I informed my husband about the stolen bank book, and he said, "It's over. We can pound them for all I care." My mother-in-law suggested reporting to the police, but we decided to leave the house as quickly as possible, making it our last resort. I couldn't let them run wild anymore and refused to be taken advantage of. Despite feeling sorry for the sudden upheaval, we chose to stay at a hot spring inn until the problem was resolved. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. I'll work on resolving this issue quickly, so please bear with it here for a while. Don't worry about me. Besides, I'm happy to stay at such a luxurious inn. At that moment, I resolved that once this problem was settled, I would definitely find a comfortable new home for my mother-in-law. A few days later, after completing various procedures, I finally had a moment to relax. Then, unexpectedly, I received a call much sooner than I had anticipated. And of course, the caller was my son. "Hello, Mom. You haven't been home lately. Are you on a trip?" Gran was not there either, so I was just wondering what happened. His voice sounded clearly trembling and upset. It's odd, isn't it? He ignored me for 3 years, yet now he can talk when he's in trouble. What's the matter? This is the first time you've spoken to me in 3 years. Do you need something? By the way, I noticed something's wrong. Did something happen? I have no business with you guys, I said coldly. Please, don't say that, my son pleaded. We received a notice to vacate the house by the end of the month. It's our house. So what's going on? He asked. The real estate agent, outraged by our story, had swiftly processed the paperwork and sent the eviction notice within 2 days. Impressed by the agent's prompt action, I decided it was time to tell the truth. That house, I said. I sold it because I thought it was no longer needed, and the new buyer wants you out soon. But what about us? We have nowhere to go, my son protested. Where are you and Grandma now? Well, come there, I said, showing no sympathy. Enough is enough. Why are you crying to me now, after freeloading for 3 years, ignoring me and Grandma, and now trying to use us in this situation? Just so you know, I intend to cut ties with you. Your father agrees with this decision. Please, don't say that, my son begged. I didn't mean it. I wanted to get along with you and Grandma. I'm looking for a job, too. His words were empty, and I could hear the lies in his voice. If he had shown genuine remorse, we might have reconsidered, but he had already crossed the line by stealing the bank book. By the way, I said, you stole my bank book from the bedroom, didn't you? What were you planning to do with it? You thought you could take the money and everything would be fine, right? Lies won't do you any good. I could tell that my son was on the verge of tears. Then, his wife took the phone. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Kicking your son and his wife out of their house? Don't you have any heart? Are you a demon? As I had anticipated, Catherine unleashed a barrage of hysterical insults, claiming I was just living off Grandma's pension too. You're no different from Tom, she sneered, acting all high and mighty without a job. I was stunned into silence for a moment, my mouth hanging open. Do you think I could pay off the mortgage on that big house if I were jobless? I retorted. I've been paying $2,000 every month. And for your information, I'm not Jess, I added sharply. It felt pointless to explain further. Her level of unawareness was clear. I earned about $5,000 a month from my remote work, but I didn't see the need to share these details with them. By the way, Catherine, I said, you're jobless too, yet you always wear branded items. Where did you get those? I suspected, though I couldn't confirm, that she was deeply in debt, always sporting new designer bags and wallets. My son, before being fired, had worked at a decent company and earned a fair salary. It seemed she was the one who ruined everything. I have no intention of prying into your private affairs, I said, but if you're in debt, you'd better deal with it quickly before things get out of hand. Also, please leave that house as soon as possible. With that, I ended the call. Despite the apology emails from my son, I ignored them. My husband, too, dismissed them with even colder words than I had used. For years, we had been ignored, but now it was our turn to ignore them. They should thoroughly enjoy their hellish lives. A few months later, I heard that the couple had moved out of the house into a shabby apartment. Catherine had accumulated a significant amount of debt, and although my son had tried to initiate a divorce, they decided to repay the debt together since it was also in his name. Both were jobless and struggling to make ends meet, working long hours while being pursued by debt collectors. Their hellish life continued, but they would have to figure it out themselves. As for me, I'm currently considering a new house to live in with my mother-in-law. My husband is likely to return from his business trip soon, so we're planning to live together in a comfortable, peaceful home, enjoying a happy and tranquil life.